you can write A or not A. I've written that in Gensen sequence, but if you could, instead you could say I, A or not A, by tautology introduction. So any line you can just say A or not A for any A. You can add that to NJ. That will let you prove more things you could in NJ, but it's still one that you prove the whole of NK. So you've extended the system somewhat, but not as far as it can go. And we work with lots of weaker systems. Or if you had from not A, which I guess is a double negation rule, from not A, I, you do A, J, double negation elimination, just doing Gensen and non-Gensen. Then you've extended NJ plus this rule if you NK. So if you add more things to the language, you add modalities, and the whole of 216 and the whole of 315, which are two of our logic forces, are extending NK by adding new letters and new things about it. But there's nothing more you can prove without those new symbols, the boxes and diamonds and other modalities. Okay.
Can we just have an example for that?
Sure. So this is a symbol for necessary. That says P is necessary.
Yep.
And you can say something like, if P is necessary, then it better be possible. That's a rule that is sometimes discussed when we're doing moral modal logics or deontic moral logics. If you must do P, then it better be possible. You must save people from dying, so now it's possible. So therefore, it should be possible for you to save people from dying. If it's not possible, then we can't say you are morally compelled to do it. It would just be wrong to say you have to do it, and you can't. I mean, that's a debatable thing, but that's the sort of term you might add to your logic and say one of the restrictions of saying you have to do it is that it's possible. And that extends your modal logic to have an extra principle for reasoning. Just as an example. Or you might say everything that's possible, so everything that is possible. Whatever is happening now is possible, which you probably agree with. But maybe you want to say whatever is happening now is necessary. There is no other way the world could be. If you're a fatalist, you can add that second rule in. Anything that's true has to be true no matter what. So you probably agree with this first one. Anything that's true is possible, but you don't want to say that anything that's true is necessary. There's never any choice. So these are principles that again change your modal logic. Okay, that was just a bit of random example. So we've got derivable rules, which are rules you can prove in a proof and then you shortcut. And to show a rule is derivable, you prove it in your old system without it. If you can prove a rule, then you know it's derivable because you've just derived it. Now, to prove that something's not admissible, you prove something that couldn't be proved in the system. So you say, take NJ, you add this extra rule, and you can prove something that you couldn't prove in NJ. Now you know it's not admissible because you've shown one case that it's made it not NJ anymore. Admissible rules are somewhere in between. You can't prove them in the system. If you add them to the system, you can't prove anything new. So how do you show that? How do you show that there's no proof? You write an English essay or a maths proof. You write an explanation clearly with steps, kind of explaining if I do this, this happens, this happens. It's kind of difficult to do. So admissible ones you can generally show that you couldn't prove it, and we'll be spending a bit of time looking at the admissibility ones because that's the most interesting blurry case. But I thought I'd start off with an example of a derivable rule, and we can prove it, and an example of a non-admissible rule, and we'll prove that. So here's a rule that you probably didn't want to do, but maybe you should have. Oops. So let's say you've got P and. You've got P and Q, or any formula, let's give it general, A and B. If you've got that, then A or B follows from it. Single step, new rule. If both things are true, at least one of them is true.
Is that for admissible rule? Or?
We're going to derive this now, so this should become derivable. Oh. So let's prove it. NK, prove, go. Can we prove this using NK? I mean, I know I can prove it, but that's not so interesting. Or can you prove it in NJ? Or keep it in NJ to keep things simple. Premise, A and B. Conclusion, A or B. That will come from some sort of assumption introduction from 3. Can we get 3 from 1? Yes. Done. Mine's back in week 1 again. So we can prove, from A and B we can prove A, and from A we can prove A or B. So if we've got both of them, we've got at least one. So now I've got a proof using just natural deduction rules from NJ. So this is an NJ derivable rule, because I proved it using just NJ. So this is NJ derivable because NJ proof. So I proved it's derivable because I've derived it. So that's not that interesting, but it's a simple example. Any questions on the idea of a derivable proof or how you prove it? Let's do another one then. This one's going to be a couple more lines longer. And I'll introduce a new concept when I'm doing it. I'll see if I have a flat pen that works. Chucked out 5 pens in the last tutorial, last Monday tutorial. Okay. Here's my rule. I've written it with a double line. What does that mean? It means that you can use the rule both ways. So I'm saying from here you can prove here, from here you can get to here, from here you can get to here. The rule can be read both ways around. I'm saying, is this derivable in NJ? To do that, you can prove the second from the first and the first from the second. Yeah.
And they're both conclusion?
So you make this a premise and show that's a conclusion,
Oh.
and then separately you make this a premise and show that's a conclusion. So you've got 2 proofs, one in each direction. Yeah.
Would it still be valid if you started from a by implication of both and then just proved it upwards?
Yeah. So that would be the same as proving the by implication of the 2. Yes.
So that would save a bit of space.
Well, it's the same. You've got the 2 proofs, right? So you've got the 2 proofs and a bottom line. So it's actually saved -1 lines. But it's tidy, it's not single proofs. Might be conceptually easier. Or you might already have bits of this that you can reuse. So yeah, not A and not B, therefore not A and B, therefore not A and not B. We're going to be using these systems a lot in the next few weeks anyway, so it's good for you to remind yourself how they work. You may even remember that you did these in week 2 or 3 in the exercises. So we're asking whether this is NJ derivable, I guess. Make that clear. And if you're racing through that one, I'm going to leave a second one, which is just an extension for those who are finding that one easy. Know if they're NJ derivable or not. See, there's the De Morgan laws. They're all equivalent truth table wise, but does that mean we can prove them? Because if so, we can do this in one step. That is a rule, which would be kind of nice. I'm easily entertained. Has anyone shown that you can't do the top one? Good. I'm going to have a crack at it as well. My answer, so to speak. What do you have?
It's impossible to break down the premise verbal, right?
Break this down?
Yeah. Because it's negation.
Yeah.
You only use it to
Get contradictions.
Get contradiction.
Yeah.
And you can't get a contradiction with A because it's A or B as a whole, not a unit, which is again unbreakable because it's inside there.
Okay. So I've got a not A, so it's going to be an A contradiction. From A I get A or B. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. That was. I was expecting it to be a few lines harder.
Oh, jokes is the other one. We're doing the top one, not the bottom one.
So,
Okay.
so you're working on this problem here?
Yeah.
So you think the second one can't be done?
You can't. I don't think you can do not A and B.
Right.
And then drop it down to get not A and not B.
You don't. You can go from here.
Not without using NJ.
No, so not an EJ. Okay. Has anyone else had a go at there? Come to the same conclusion? Or different conclusion? I guess the proof would show otherwise, wouldn't it? Okay, I'll just have a crack at the second half of this. I guess it's not A, it's not B. No, hang on, I've got
It's
something
not A and B.
Yeah, that's better. So, maybe this is from not A, which means we've got an A, it's a contradiction. That's not going to work easily, is it? If I had B, that would give me A and B, which is a contradiction, so I shouldn't assume that, so I've got not B. That's not going to get me anywhere, is it? That's just a floating idea, it's not going to the proof. Anyone got that proof for that second one? I'm also out of practice for a few weeks. That's because I was trying to prove this part here. I meant to be proving the other direction. No wonder it wasn't working. Not A and not B, and I'm trying to prove that. Try to prove the right things, Andrew. From not A and B means you assume A and B, you'll get a contradiction. Not A and not B, not A, not B. If it's A, it's a contradiction. It's the B, the contradiction. The A contradicts that, the B contradicts that. Okay, so I haven't put any justifications or line numbers in, but I'm just making sure we can do it. So I think I can prove from here to here, I can prove from here to here. Using NJ, I didn't use any double negation rules. So I have sketch, these are not proofs, these are sketches of proofs because I don't have the numbers and justifications, that you can prove here to here. You also saw me failing to prove that from here you can get to here. That doesn't mean you can't prove it, it meant that in 3 minutes I couldn't. We've got a bolded claim that it can't be done. So this one here we can prove from here to here, we can prove from here to here in NJ. So this is NJ derivable, we can use that as a rule. We can prove from here to here reasonably straightforwardly as well in NJ. This one cannot be done in NJ, going from this rule, this formula to that formula. So this is not an NJ rule, you cannot use that De Morgan's law in NJ. As it turns out, there are many, many logics derived from many, many different forms, including English and other sort of motivations, most of which don't have this rule, they only have this rule. So this is a derivable rule, this is not a derivable rule. You can't prove from this. This, and it's an exercise. If you look in week 4, you can prove it, but only with the double negation. So that's not a derivable rule. Okay. How do we show something is not just not derivable, but also inadmissible? We do that by proving that it can prove more stuff than you could before. So now we'll check whether this lets you prove something that you couldn't at all in NJ. Well, that's reasonably straightforward, because one of the things you can't prove at all in NJ is that from not A and B, that you can prove not A or not B. This cannot be done in NJ. And it can be done in one step with this rule. So clearly you can prove something using this rule that you couldn't prove before in NJ, so it's not admissible. It's not only can't be derived, but it lets you prove something new. So it's not admissible, not admissible. Admissible, we can't admit it, we will not have it in NJ. On the other hand, it is derivable in NK, so it's fine to add to NK, it doesn't give you any more power. So we've seen what it looks like for something to be derivable, we've seen what it looks like for something to be non-admissible. We've got this weird middle ground that you might not think there's any room for, which is something that you can't prove, but if you add it, it doesn't let you prove any more stuff. So let's have a look at an example of one of those. So imagine you've got a big, long, complicated formula, and in the middle of it is a conjunction. Let's call it conjunction P and Q. Now if we change that whole formula, so everything was the same, but it said Q and P, would that be cool? Big, long formula, you can just change the conjuncts no matter how big or complicated the formula is. So that's another rule we might want to do. Just, we can always change the order of a conjunction anywhere we see it. That seems harmless, right? In particular, it seems at least admissible. Adding that wouldn't let us prove anything that we couldn't before. But can we prove it in general? So I'll just write that slightly formally. Given any great big honking formula, which contains inside it, say, a P and Q, I guess more generally an A and B, some sort of conjunction, we have that same big honking formula, but with the conjunction turned around, however deep it is inside it. So not telling you what that formula was. If we told you that formula, that would be a different story, but we need a different rule for every single formula. So say there's any formula at all, we can always just switch the conjunctions around. Now, is this derivable? Why not?
Because you don't know what the formula is.
Yep, and so...
You don't know what logic you can or can't use to solve it.
Yeah,
Like break it apart, that's what you can
Yeah, you can't use any steps. You can't use the conjunction rule because is the main connector of a conjunction? We don't know. Disjunction, don't know. Implication, don't know. We don't know what the next thing is to break it down. If we ever did break it down to here, we could certainly swap them around, but we can't break it down, so we can't actually prove this is the case. We can't derive this rule. But it does seem obviously fine, right? And there is no proof that starts with some sort of formula, uses this rule, and comes up with something you could prove otherwise. Why? Because we know you can just swap these formulas around. This is what an admissible rule feels like. We can't prove it. We can't prove the rule, so it's not derivable, and it does no harm, which are no new things. So it's not inadmissible. English double negations cancel, so it's admissible. Now, how do you describe that? With a bit of a story. Someone tell me a story why you can always swap the negations around. So we all seem to know you can just swap the conjuncts around. We all know this, right? Tell me a story. We all know it, and it's true. Give you an even stronger hint. So no fear. Can you give a partial story? Bits of the story.
1 + 1 = 2 and 1 + 1 = 2.
We can get some examples that work. So it's an example like when it's an A and A, you can swap that around safely. So there's examples that work, so it doesn't fail all the time. That's a part of the story. Can we say why it always works? Well, we all believe it works, right? You can always swap the conjunct order, in logic at least, not in English. she jumped in the pool and took her shoes off is different from she took her shoes off and jumped in the pool. One has got wet shoes. But in logic, you don't have time, that doesn't matter. Okay, how about this? We can always break down a formula eventually to get to this formula inside. We just keep on doing the elimination rules to get to it. Once we get to that, we can then eliminate this conjunction, get an A, get a B, then do a conjunction reduction to join them together the other way, and then just rebuild the rest of the formula back up again. That's a sketch of a proof. We can't tell you what that proof is, but that's a derivation method that always works. We give it an explanation. Because once we get down to here, all we're doing is pulling it apart, putting it back in a different order, which we can always safely do. So that's not a proof, but it's a hand-wavy description of what you would do, which would be an algorithm that people could follow no matter what the formula is. So it's kind of a semi-convincing story of why you can do this. The other convincing story is just talk about the nature of and what it means. But that's not a proofy story, that's more like a truth table or semantic-y story. So we can't use that in this course. This is all about rules. So it's a half-assed story at least, some reasonable story about why you could do this. And we certainly can't prove it directly, and you can say why you can't prove it. And we can say why we think it's not admissible, why you can't prove extra stuff. So these are admissible rules, and you can see they're a little bit weird, but we do use them quite often. Here's another one that you probably have wanted to use, and I've said no, don't. For all x, for all y, rx, y. Again, it's more complicated than x, y. Let's just go, there's something which involves an x and a y in it. You want to eliminate this y before the x sometimes, right? And it never hurts if you can eliminate the x and then eliminate the y. Let's just do the y first, to do them both at the same time. So you know you could just keep the x, get rid of the y, make the y into an a or whatever letter you're doing, and it would be fine. You can get rid of, you've got multiple universals, you can get rid of them in any order. Or all at once. Now that's not a rule, but you could probably talk about why that's the case. Now, is this derivable? Is this admissible? Can you prove from this you can do this? Well, this is just replacing all the y's with a's. Can you prove it? If so, you better do it in like 3 or 4 steps. So it's worth a go. See if you can. And if not, I'm going to feel why you can't. And then whether it's admissible or derivable, or possibly that you can prove stuff you couldn't otherwise. For all x, for all y, something with an x and a y in it. Therefore, for all y, something with the x replaced with a, and a y. So something with the x is replaced with b's, y is replaced with a's. That's another universal elimination on 2. Now I'm going to do a universal introduction. Elimination. On 3, for all x, to my b's into x's. My b's aren't used anywhere above, so that's fine. Not any of the premises. That's some sort of proof. I still don't know what the phi is, but I'm saying I'll just substitute all my x's in, all my y's in. That's a proof. This is derivable. You can derive this rule. It's always safe to get rid of the second or third, well in this case the second universal, and leave the first one there. As long as there's no extra brackets or anything like that. So that's derivable. But something very similar is not derivable, which is if you've got some big fancy formula with some quantifiers in it, then you can just get rid of one of the quantifiers without caring. Now that's not derivable because you can't break it in here. Is it admissible? Well, you can make it simple. I make this a simple concrete example. R, X, Y, R, X, A. So it's not derivable because we can't get in through here. But is it admissible, or is it going to let us do something that we shouldn't? Any half thoughts?
It could if your proof method is bad, because I mean, what if you use A inside of your potential?
Right. Okay. So getting around this, let's call this new. So you're quite right. So one of the things that has to be a new letter, so we'll just call this new. So that gets around our first problem. Good. We've clarified and made the rule better. What's the other?
Oh, that was the same.
Same thing? Good. Okay, so with this, it might be admissible now. It can't go wrong. I'm going to put forward a suggested formula here for this one here. We'll see what we think. Do a different colour just to show that this is an example formula. Here's an example that might cause problems. If it's not the case that everyone loves everyone, then it's not the case that everyone loves this new person. Actually, let's not use love, let's use older than. It's not the case that everyone's older than everyone, then it's not the case that everyone's older than this new one. You can start seeing this is actually much stronger. This is restricting a lot more than this is. This probably doesn't follow. There might be a new thing which everyone has. No? I might choose Beyonce. No? It's not that everyone loves everyone, but it is true that everyone loves Beyonce. Perhaps. So it's certainly this. You know, you couldn't guarantee that not everyone loves Beyonce just because you know that not everyone loves everyone. So this turns out to be not an admissible rule. You can prove this. So this is not an admissible rule because there are some formulas with this that you prove new things that you shouldn't before. Now you know that Beyonce has enemies. And all you knew before is that someone has enemies. Now you know for any person you know, any person you can name, they have enemies, which is much stronger. So this rule looks harmless and admissible, but it turns out it's not, because with the right formulas, this doesn't hold either. So this admissible, non-admissible, derivable, non-derivable stuff, sometimes even in reasonably small formulas, isn't too intuitive. Okay, so we need to have these proof methods. You try to prove something's derivable by deriving it. You try to prove something's inadmissible by, in this case I created an example of the rule where I proved something you didn't want to be able to prove. That shouldn't be able to be provable just from that premise. Okay, yeah?
Is it not admissible means you still like it?
I know. So you have, I should draw a diagram because I like diagrams, which might be an answer to your question, is supposed to be an answer to your question, but you never know with me. Okay, so admissible rules are things that if you add, they do not hurt. Inside there is derivable rules, which is you can add because you can prove that they work. So it's a proof it's okay, these are okay. And then outside the admissible is the not okay. This is the non-admissible. So there is non-admissible, things that you can now prove things you didn't want to. Derivable, which are just shortcuts for proof. And then this middle ground of the admissible stuff, which you can't prove works, so it doesn't ever hurt to have them. And obviously that's a weird category, but that's where the juicy stuff happens. I might give you another example of an admissible rule, because this one didn't quite fly. Here's an admissible rule that is admissible though. For all y, for all x, r x, y. So anywhere deep inside any formula at all, if you've got it for all x, for all y, you can change it for all y, for all x. The order of those quantifiers doesn't matter.
That proof you're written on the document.
Yeah.
Does that really, that's not really a derivation within natural deduction, is it? Because you've kind of done some stuff which isn't in natural deduction.
So which rules have I used for stuff in natural deduction?
Well,
There's something
there's
interesting.
sort of subscripting that's going on now.
Right, so what I've done is my notation isn't the standard notation we've used. So what I've said is whatever y's are in that formula we've replaced with a's, which is of course what we say we're doing. And if you look at the rules in the rule sheet for exams, that's how it's written. Just that when we're doing concrete examples, we tend to actually just replace all the y's with a's. Then this is just say, I will replace the y's with a's. That's an instruction or a promissory note of what I'm doing, rather than actually having done it.
Okay.
But that's how the rules are written. So
So this is actually a valid natural deduction proof.
it depends how you define the language. It's fine for the logic, but you might have to change the language we're using to allow these extra symbols in there. But once those symbols are defined, then it will behave the same way. So oddly enough, I'm using the language that the rules are written in rather than the language we've been proving in, because our rules allow this. Our rules are written in this language.
Okay.
So the answer is maybe, depending on whether you think the language that the logic in has to include the language the rules are written in or not. And that's really a matter of choice. Because sometimes it can get you in trouble once you start adding extra symbols. In this case, it is fine. But you can get to things like girdles and completeness if you go that too far, it's too complicated to languages. So it's worth being aware of.
So do you mean to know if it's not admissible, the only way is to find an example?
You find that it's gone wrong, you can prove a new thing you didn't want.
And there's no way to know if it's admissible.
Well, no, all you can do is tell a story. Is that I can't find any proofs that it's derivable, I can't find any proofs that it's not okay, and here's a story why it might be okay. There are proofs for admissibility, but not part of this course, the big and hard.